Good afternoon and welcome to Nutmeg Sports here on the HAN Network. I'm Frank Granito holding down the shop today as Donald Eng plays editor and Dave Stewart enjoys a vacation. We are going to bring you part 2 of our fall FCX Tour preview. Yesterday we looked at some of the fall teams for the first 8 schools that we will be visiting starting on our tour tomorrow. Today we will look at the final 9 stops that the HAN Cruiser will make. But before we get into that, we have some big news reported from Trinity Catholic High School earlier today. Trinity Catholic's Gaglio Field is not quite ready yet for the season opener. The unveiling of the Crusaders' new artificial turf multi-sport use of field has been postponed. Trinity Catholic's scheduled football opener against New Canaan on September 10th will now be played at Dunning Stadium on the campus of New Canaan High School on the 10th at 3 o'clock. While the artificial turf field itself appears to be complete, there are no grandstand or press box in place and other infrastructure issues that need to be addressed and finalized. This story coming out of the Stanford Advocate. The first Trinity Catholic football game to be played at Gaglio Field is now scheduled for Saturday, September 24th against Norwalk High School when Trinity Catholic is the last school that has made the shift to an artificial field surface. The HAN Network will be live on September 10th. Originally planning to do that New Canaan's Trinity game. We are going to commit to doing Danbury at Stanford from Boyle Stadium. Kickoff for that game is scheduled for 1:30. Again, that's Saturday, September 10th. Moving back to our fall tour preview now, we will go ahead and start with volleyball where we left off yesterday. And let's go to Staples High and the home of the Wreckers, where Staples produced a 10-6 record last year, coming up as the 4th best team in the Western Division. They lost in the first round of FCX as the 8th seed. They ran into the undefeated Darien Blue Wave, who won in straight sets 3-0. Staples was able to win a game in the postseason, but unfortunately as the 17 seed ran into that same Darien Blue Wave team with the same result in round 2. This is a Staples program that is perennial up there with the volleyball teams in this conference, and a little bit of a disappointing year having to almost miss out on the playoffs, making it by 1 point. They run into a very tough Darien team, but they come back this year, recharge, bring back a lot of depth. We will actually see Staples early on. That'll be our 3rd broadcast of the season when Staples and defending FCX champion Fairfield Ludlow will play in volleyball. Our next stop on the list will meet with the Stanford Black Knights volleyball team. They were 8-8 in the conference last season, 5th place, missing out on the FCX. They did qualify for the state tournament. They lost in the first round against Fairfield Ward 3-1. Stanford not really known for its volleyball teams and having great success, but it was even tougher for them to have the ability to make the state playoffs. Then you run into another FCX team, and Don and I talked about it yesterday. So many of these FCX teams are top talent teams within the state, and to have to match up against each other early on in the state tournament is just very unfortunate, knowing that one of these teams has to lose out. Tough for Stanford to run into Ward, especially as the 18 seed, but give them a lot of credit. It's a program on the rise, and we expect that we could see some big things coming from Stanford this year. We go now to West Hill, which will be our second stop come Tuesday next week. They were 3-13 in play last season, finished 7th in the Western Division, missing out on both FCX and states. When we were looking at the schedule earlier this year, we really put an emphasis on how West Hill is a girls' soccer kind of school. They really have a perennial program from the soccer side of things that is in competition to win an FCX championship. They're always going to be towards the top of the league. Just haven't quite figured it out yet with volleyball, and a real tough season. Didn't have a lot of seniors last year. You hope that they'll be able to rebuild a little bit and continue to grow as a program and maybe climb up a little bit in the rankings. More than likely not a team we will see in the FCX playoffs, though, at the end of this spring. Our final stop on Tuesday for volleyball will be with the Greenwich Cardinals. They were 12-4 last season, finished 2nd in the Western Division. They made it all the way to the FCX semifinals as a 5 seed, but unfortunately fell at the hands of Darien 3-1. Greenwich matched up against Brian McMahon, who we talked about yesterday in that first round. They had a big win, taking down the Senators 3-0. They ended up, though, coming out of the bracket on the bottom half of, coming from the bottom half of the bracket, had nice draws, able to climb their way through the state playoffs before finally falling at the hands in the championship game to Fairfield Ludlow. It was a 9-10 matchup. Ludlow the 10, Greenwich the 9. Ludlow won that match 3-0 as they maintain the title of both FCIAC and state champion. Bridgeport Central will be our first stop on Wednesday morning before we make our way to the Fairfield schools. Central 0-16, finished 8th in the Western Division. They missed out on the FCIAC and state state playoffs. We are excited to see what those girls bring back this year, and we'll look forward to seeing their girls and boys soccer team in competition live on HAN. Now we get on Tuesday morning, mid-morning, to Fairfield Ludlow, the defending FCIAC and state champs. 13-3 record in the regular season, second in the Eastern Division behind Darien. They find a way to work all the way to the FCIAC championship and knocking off one of the best programs in all of the state and in state history in the Darien Blue Wave. They took down rival Fairfield Ward 3-1 in the quarterfinals. Then they knocked off Ridgefield 3-2 in the semifinals before finishing off Darien 3-1. Again, that great run in the FCIAC followed up with an even better run in states as they go all the way to the championship to win both titles in FCIAC and Class LL as they knocked off Greenwich 3-0. Very excited to meet with this team and these captains and how they plan to recreate or do their best to continue the success now set by the graduating seniors who have left. Fairfield Ward finished 10-6 in the conference play, 4th in the Eastern Division. They lost in the first round of FCX to that Ludlow championship team 3-1. Were able to knock off, that was Stanford in the first round of states before losing as a 15 seed to Amity 3-1 in the second round of play. A Ward team that should be very competitive again. We expect to have some great matchups and hopefully maybe cover the Ward-Ludlow matchup later on in October. But again, a team to keep an eye on and watch out for. Wilton went 1-15 in play last season, 9th in the East, missing out on both FCIAC and state. A down year for the Warriors program. Look for them to be back up on the rise this year, sitting right around 500 and just on the FCIAC bubble, more than likely qualifying for state play. Finally, we look at Trinity Catholic, 8-8, 6th in the Eastern Division. They missed out on FCIAC's, qualified for the Class S state championships. They lost in the second round as an 18 seed, 3-0 to Coventry. The big story for volleyball is we've now wrapped up all those teams. You're going to see Darien there at the end. Is Ludlow able to rebuild and compete? Staples will be there. Greenwich should be there. Now you've got a little bit of mix into the middle of this team. A little bit of mix in the middle of the conference. McMahon had a great season. They were up as the 4 seed, lost in that first round against a tough Greenwich team. Fairfield Ward figures to be in the mix again. Where does New Canaan fit in? Can Wilton rebound? You had teams that just missed out within 4 points of qualifying for the playoffs that are robbed of that and don't make it to the FCIAC. It's a very competitive league. We've seen that in winning the biggest state class championship, but it's a matter of how much they beat each other up and what their draw will be when they come out of the conference tournament. Again, our first volleyball matchup will be Fairfield Ludlow and Staples. That broadcast will come live September 13th, and we will have that not only on the HA Network, but also with our new partner, Frontier Communications. We'll step aside here quickly on Nutmeg Sports. When we get back, we'll shift gears and head over to the pitch as we take a look at the boys and girls soccer seasons to come.
Have a sports injury or a slip and fall that needs immediate care? Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care gives you direct access to an orthopedic specialist fast, without an appointment. Biking, golf, tennis, soccer, whatever the sports injury is, sprain or fracture, Coastal Ortho Express can help. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, open Monday through Saturday, now in 2 locations. The iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk and 36 Old Kings Highway South in Darien. Or go to coastalorthoexpress.com, like them on Facebook. For more than 50 years, Triple S has been Fairfield County's expert service for carpet, upholstery, and drapery cleaning. We provide the best in repairs and in-depth restoration, understanding fabrics and how to properly clean and restore them. Our staff will come to your home to clean your wall-to-wall carpet to perfection. We can also pick up your fine carpets and bring them to our facilities. With locations in Norwalk, Stamford, and Stratford, Triple S will get the job done fast, big or small. At Triple S, you can count on our people as well as our cleaning. Find us at triplesclean.com or 203-847-8000.
Hi, this is Leo Carl from Carl Chevrolet in New Canaan, and you've heard me talk about the Chevy Volt for years. The new model gets 53 miles on EV charge daily, plus 420-mile full range. But don't take my word for it. You need to come in and test drive the Volt yourself. Visit us at 261 Elm Street in New Canaan or online at carldirect.com.
A Better View Window Cleaning Plus has been cleaning glass all over Connecticut for over 20 years. They also specialize in cleaning chandeliers, mirrors, skylights, tiles, and will power wash anything that needs cleaning. They hold an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and are fully insured and bonded. When you deal with a Better View, you're dealing with the best, not the rest. Call today for a free estimate, 203-284-8836, or visit them online, abetterviewcleaning.com.
Give your day a jumpstart with the latest news, sports, weather, and more on Coffee Break, live on the HAN Network, weekdays at 11 a.m. Connecticut news doesn't get any more local than on Coffee Break.
Welcome back to Nutmeg Sports here on the HAN Network. Frank Granito in studio today, bringing you the final coverage of our Fall FCX Tour preview before the HAN Cruiser hits the road tomorrow and makes its first stop at Darien High School. We gave you the first 8 schools yesterday. We're wrapping up our final 9 stops today, and we go now to boys soccer, and we'll start with Staples again, which will be our last stop on Monday afternoon. Staples last season with an 8-4-4 record, good enough to put themselves 3rd place in the Western Conference before falling at the hands of the number 2 seed Darien Blue Wave in the first round of FCX. Staples also lost in the first round of the state tournament. They were the 20th seed in the tournament, matched up against Hall, and they lost that game 2-1. Staples is always a competitive soccer program, one of the bigger schools, able to bring out the numbers that you really want to see to have success as a program in this state. Tough Darien team, as one of our sports editors said today, arguably the best Darien team in the history of Darien soccer. It's a tough matchup to run into that, and it's just coming off a little bit of a hangover and a bit of a break too between the first round of FCX and the first round of states. Moving on, the next team was Stamford High School, the Black Knights, with a record of 5-10-1 last season, good enough for 16 points, 7th place in the Western Division. They missed out on both the FCX and the state tournament. A disappointing year for Stamford High School soccer, as we will continue now with West Hill, who went 2-11-3, good enough for 9 points, just behind Stamford, 8th in the Western Division. They also missed out on the FCX and states. And while we're in Stamford, let's skip ahead and we look at the final stop of the tour. That's Trinity Catholic High School. We mentioned it was a tough year for Stamford soccer. Trinity Catholic 1-14-0, only 3 points. They miss out on FCX and states. Unlikely that we will see all 3 Stamford teams miss out on the postseason again. But when we spoke with Trinity Athletic Director Bob Robustelli a couple weeks ago, he talked about, obviously, there's the importance of how good your football team has to be, no matter what school you are in this conference. Then he mentioned sports like baseball that he is very close with and wants to see succeed, but he mentioned the soccer and how he wants to see this soccer program back on the rise and having the success of some of the other championship programs that Trinity Catholic has produced over the years. So that is something to keep an eye on with those Stamford schools. Our final stop Tuesday afternoon will be Greenwich High School and the Cardinals. Good season for them last year, 11-3-2, 35 points. 2nd in the Western Division. They lost in the FCX semifinals, and that was to Darien High School. They lost 1-0. A tough game there. They ended up losing in the state quarterfinals then, playing the number 1 seed Glastonbury. They lost 4-0 there. Glastonbury, of course, went on to win the state championship. They defeated Darien. But a good season from Greenwich. They ran into 2 very tough teams at the end. But for a Greenwich program, and a Greenwich, just the athletic department, those are the games that they're expected to win from both the school and the town. With the story and tradition those programs have, the size of that school, and coming out of the FCIAC where all these schools truly believe they have a chance to win a state championship every year, those are the games that Greenwich will have to find a way to win this year with a new group of characters coming up. We go now to Bridgeport Central, a tough season for the Hilltoppers, 0-16, last in the Western Division, missing out on the FCIAC and states. Heading now over to Fairfield Ludlow. Ludlow was 10-5-1 on the year, good enough for 31 points, is third in the Eastern Division, lost in the FCIAC's first round as a 5 seed. They lost 1-0 to Greenwich, losing in states in the second round as an 11 seed 2-1 to Ridgefield. Fairfield Ward had a great season, 14-1-1, second in the East, lost in the FCIAC first round as a 2 seed. Really one of the better games we've seen all season. They lost 9-8 on penalty kicks to Darien. It was an absolutely incredible game. They lost in the second round of states as a 3 seed, 2-1 versus Hall. And Eric, you'll have to forgive me, I skipped ahead there. That was actually the girls' Fairfield Ward team. Fairfield Ward boys were 9-3-4, fourth in the East. They lost in round 1 of the FCIACs as the 5 seed to Fairfield Ludlow. Ludlow, of course, who won the FCIAC last year, going to beat Darien 2-1. They lost in states to Greenwich. Greenwich was the semis to Darien. Moving ahead now, Wilton, 10-3-3, a great season for the Warriors, second in the Eastern Division, lost in the FCIAC's first round to Greenwich, lost in the state quarterfinals after a little bit of a run. They played against Farmington, as a 15 seed. That game 4-3, one of the highest scoring games in the entire state tournament. Boys soccer, we know the story. Danbury is always going to be up there. They were upset last year by Ludlow in the semifinals, and Ludlow then goes on and knocks off Darien. This was a Darien team, we said, that was once in the ages. How do they respond and how do they continue to develop talent within this program coming up? Can Greenwich bounce back and win those big games late in the year? Where does Ridgefield fit into the mix? The New Canaan team that won the championship 2 years ago missed the playoffs last year. Central's being competitive. The Norwalk school is more competitive. And again, I expect to see one of those Stanford schools in the postseason this year. It's very exciting to get to meet with all these captains this week and see what they think about what could be a very open conference in the 2016 season. Looking at the girls now, Staples 9-6-1, third in the West, lost in the first round of FCIACs to St. Joe's, in the first round of states to Darien. Stanford at 3-12-0, seventh in the West, missing out on FCIACs and states. West Hill 9-7, 27 points, fourth in the West, missed out on the conference playoffs by 1 point. They lost in the first round of states against a tough Wilton opponent. Greenwich, we mentioned, lost in the FCIAC semis, 4-1 to St. Joe's. They lost in the FCIAC quarters to Glastonbury, who went on to win the championship. Ludlow at 10-5-1, third in the East, lost to Greenwich in the first round of FCIACs, 1-0 in overtime. Lost in states in the second round to Ridgefield, 2-1. Ward, again, this was that Ward girls team we mentioned before, lost 9-8 in PKs to Darien in the first round. One of the best games that arguably might have ever been a part of the FCIAC championships for soccer, to go that far, both teams leaving it all on the line. Unfortunately for Ward, as the 2 seed and coming off a great regular season, they were upset by the number 7 Darien girls. They lost in the second round of states as the 3 seed, another disappointing and a bit of a hangover loss coming off that tough one to Darien, 2-1 to Hall. Wilton was 9-6-1, 28 points, fourth in the East. They lost in the first round of FCIACs 2-1 to Ridgefield as the 6th seed, and they lost in the state quarters to a New Canaan girls team that made a run all the way to the semifinals. That'll be it for girls soccer. Again, we'll meet with all those captains starting on Thursday and running through the whole next week. We'll take one more break here on Nutmeg Sports, but when we get back, I'll take a look at the field hockey preview, and Josh Fisher might join us and give his thoughts on our FCIAC tour.
Warm weather, light breezes, boats are in the water. There's no better place to celebrate summer than the Dock Shop. Whether in Darien at 51 Tokenique Road or Westport at 609 Riverside Avenue, the Dock Shop is where you'll find everything you need to kick off summer. From the latest summer apparel to the newest fishing tackle, the Dock Shop will help you get the most out of your next beach day or harbor cruise. At the Dock Shop, you'll find a wonderful selection of items made in the USA and right here in New England, all with a distinct nautical flair. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the coastal lifestyle, this is a unique place to shop. DockShop.com.
Walter Stewart's Market in New Canaan is your time-saving local shopping destination for the best of spring. Find many of your favorite products, from great specials on everyday items to the freshest organic produce, artisanal cheeses, and grass-fed steaks. Drop off your knives to be sharpened, grab a beautiful bouquet of spring flowers, and stop in next door for a wine tasting. Plus, their personable staff is always ready to lend a helping hand. So stop in to Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street today, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
I really wanted something that felt like a home. Coming from a big house, I wanted the feel of a home as opposed to a condo. New Canaan is 6 minutes down the road. New Canaan's a beautiful little town to walk around. I work in Westport. My commute is 20 minutes. It's close to Westchester where my family is, so the location is ideal. There is no other townhome that compares in the area. This is where I want to be.
I'm John Kovach. I'm a newspaper editor, I'm a high school football coach, I'm a television presenter, and I want you to love fishing as much as I do. Tune into Yankee Fisherman, Thursdays at 1 on the HAN network. It's like going to the tackle shop without leaving your office.
You're watching the HAN network, and you're not alone. More than 1.5 million viewers have watched our live sports, news, and entertainment broadcasting since the network launched in August 2015. Advertise on the network that reaches Fairfield County, Connecticut's most engaged audience. Contact Advertising Director Jessica Murrin at 203-273-7312 or email jessica@han.network.
Welcome you back to Nutmeg Sports here on the HAN Network. We will quickly give you our look ahead to the Final 9 schools of field hockey, and then we'll be joined by Josh Fisher to give his thoughts on the upcoming FCX Tour starting tomorrow. Staples, second in the West with a record of 9-4-0-1, lost in the first round of FCX as the 7th seed to Norwalk, and lost in the second round of States as the 10th seed 2-0 to Conard. Stanford was fifth in the West with a record of 5-9-0-0. They missed out on both the state and FCX playoffs. West Hill 2-12, 7th in the West, missing out on both playoffs opportunities as well. Greenwich 10-4, good enough for 20 points. They were first in the Western Division. Lost in the first round of FCX, though, as a 5 seed to New Canaan, and they lost in the second round of States as the 9 seed 4-1 against Glastonbury. Central obviously does not produce a field hockey team. They will be meeting with all their other captains. Ludlow 3-10-1-1, missing out on the playoffs, good enough for 6th in the Eastern Division. Ward only 12 points on the year, they miss out as well. Then Wilton 12-2, 24 points, second in the East. They were the runners-up in the FCX, losing 1-0 to Darien in that championship game. They went on, though, to make a big run through the state tournament, and they knocked off Darien on their way there to winning a state championship 1-0 over Cheshire in overtime. Field hockey, like all the other sports, very competitive. A lot of good teams, but it's a more top-heavy sport compared to some of the others. You're going to have Darien, New Canaan, Greenwich, all up there consistently each year, and some of your city schools struggling to really keep up with those other programs. But again, our FCX Tour starts tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning at Darien High School at 8 a.m. And on that note, we'd like to welcome in Josh Fisher. Josh, thanks for coming on with us, obviously. CT Pulse was awesome today. We do have to mention that.
Oh, thanks, Frank. It's great to be here.
But so, Josh, you're a huge part of the FCX Tour, but it's a lot of off-the-scenes work that isn't really seen by some of our viewers after the fact. What do you do for the tour first?
Well, I mean, it's everyone, but I think it's a fun trip because we all kind of get on the HAN Cruiser, as we call it, our RV. So it's a great bonding experience just for our staff. My job on the tour tends to be we do a lot of promotional photos with the kids. We make with the student athletes. We'll make some fun GIFs with them. The animated still photos, which what's exciting about that is as we move on start from the first school, move to the 17th school, they start seeing them on Twitter and other social media, right? And they get to compete. They're like, oh no, maybe a ward player might see that they did something different at Ludlow, so they'll want to step up the game to have something nicer. But it's also just fun to see all the different athletes coming on and interact with these kids. It's amazing how polite they are, how smart they are, and how excited they are for the season to start.
And we talk about it all the time, just, the FCIAC is such a special conference, but it's really these athletes that take it to that next level and make it such a joy to be a part of. We've also got a new piece of the puzzle this year. We've got the new HAN social media phone. So we'll have Snapchat open and seeing which team can produce the Snap story throughout the week. Yeah,
it's going to be fun. We're going to let some of the athletes, while they're waiting for Frank to interview them, use our phone and help us create our Snapchat story. Help us get some good selfies, some other photos and media that we wouldn't I wouldn't be able to necessarily get from them. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
And that's really the big thing, and I think what takes that to the next level is this whole network and everything we're doing right now, it's about the athletes. Mm-hmm. It's about the kids, and we want them to feel just as involved and be a part of this. So it's another step in bringing that in. But it's, I got to be a part of the tour in the spring season. Mm-hmm. It was my first one, and it's just, you're right, it's such a blast to get to see these kids preseason and how professionally they carry themselves as the captains representing not only their programs, but also the school and even the town.
Yeah.
And they really, all the coaches instill that message in them, and they come on, and they're just a blast to talk with. And hopefully we'll get some exciting predictions, see if some of the kids are looking forward to playing certain rivals, but always a good time.
It's going to be neat, too, this year, because this is obviously our second year of doing it. So, the first time we did it, no one really knew what we were. And then by the time the season ended, you'd hear students talking about us, and maybe, I might be like getting my coffee at Starbucks, and you'd see someone, I live in Stamford, you see someone in a West Hill shirt talking about, the HAN network covering the basketball championships this year. And it'll be, because like you said, it's about the kids, and that's what makes it so fun. I was a newspaper editor in this company for almost 15 years, and usually people don't get excited or happy when the editor of the paper shows up. But when the HAN network shows up to film a game and do it live, they get excited because it's about them. It's a positive thing that we're doing, and I think that's a lot of fun. It's fun to get the kids excited.
It is, and it's funny because I can remember being a high school athlete, and when that newspaper editor came to talk to you, that was the pinnacle. Mm-hmm. That was as cool as it could be. I'm going to have quotes in the paper. Whereas now these kids are thinking, I want to see myself online. I want to watch the video. I'm going to be on TV. Yeah. Like, it's all this other stuff. They get to be in the social media world has just exploded. Mm-hmm. Over the last decade, so it really is a blast, and you're right, in just a short amount of time, just within under a year, I think tomorrow will be officially 365 days, and it's just so cool that all these kids now know who we are and really want to be a part of it and want to try to find ways to get themselves on video.
I think we, Frank, didn't even know exactly who we were when we first started. We did our first FCIAC tour stop at Central High School in Bridgeport. It was a hot Wednesday afternoon, and we talked to, a few teams, because people didn't know what to expect, and then it was slowly as we moved on, and some schools, I remember talking to the Ridgefield High School principal, and she's like, this might take some kids out of class, it's really not worth it, and then she went and looked at what we're doing and saw what a positive thing this was for the kids, where they actually get, highlighted, they get a nice interview done with them, and they get to talk about what they love about their school, what they love about their sport, and all of that, and it's really just blossomed up, and working with all the ADs who are just amazing. We have a few new ADs to meet this year too, but I mean, the FCIAC, as you said, is top conference in the state. We're certainly biased of that because that's who we cover the most. But they got some amazing people running the league, and I just can't wait for this season to get started.
It really is. We've got a new commissioner, 3 new athletic directors, plenty of renovations and new stadiums that we get to visit with, and a whole bunch of new captains who we are very excited to meet, interview, and see in competition this upcoming fall. Don't forget that our tour starts tomorrow. We'll be at Darien in the morning, followed by Brian McMahon and Norwalk High before hitting the road for the full week. Make sure you follow Kate Czaplinski's news updates, including a full leaderboard result from the 101st Met Open that final round play is under today. Hey, Josh Fisher, I want to thank you for coming on.
Thanks,
See you early tomorrow morning.
Can't wait.
We're excited here from Nutmeg Sports on the HA Network. We'll see you soon.